Wow. What a day today. What a day today. If anybody got a chance to see the live stream earlier today, that was something. I'll explain here in the monologue for those who didn't. I'll explain here in the monologue, but what a day. Today is the 30th anniversary to the day of me winning the Jim Rome Smackoff. And I didn't realize what was going to happen today. My buddy Sam put together This Is Your Life with Jim Rome, John Gruden, Eric Allen, my dad, my son, some of my best friends on an over 2-hour podcast that's up here on the channel. So hope you got a chance to see it. If you didn't see it, check it out after the show. But pretty special.
Keep it big and so can you with Gambler's Bonus. It's why you play the game. The best way to start your football.
All right.
So. Covered every weekday morning from 7 to 10 with the morning tailgate with Playmaker. And just like a parking lot tailgate party, you never know who will stop by.
Wake you on Unnecessary Roughness from 2 to 5 on Raider Nation Radio 920 AM KRLB Las Vegas.
You're listening to the JT the Brick Show, where the Raider Nation has come to sound off and react for over 20 years.
It's the JT the Brick Show, broadcasting live from the Finley Cadillac Performance Studio.
Raiders bring a blitz. He takes him off the middle, and he's wrapped up from behind. Max Crosby.
Your silver and black home to sound off for over 20 years.
Opens at the 35, racing to the 20, 10, touchdown Raiders.
And now, here's JT the Brick.
Out of the gate, JT with you on a remarkable day, special day for me that I want to share with you as we begin a new week on the flagship of the Silver and Black, Raider Nation Radio, 920 AM, streaming live on the Raiders mobile app and at lvsportsnetwork.com. Wow. Today is a special day for me and a day that I've been blown away. If you don't know why, I'll explain in a moment. But I just did a 2.5-hour podcast. You can tell with my voice, and it was something pretty special. So I'm going to share that with you, and we're going to kind of pivot a little bit on what the show was today and what the show is going to be, because we're heavy in the NFL draft. And Rory McIlroy won yesterday, which is one of the greatest golf events I've ever seen. The NBA playoffs are set. The Golden Knights with some home ice. We're going to be really busy, but we're counting down to the draft. And we have a number of shows coming up here that will be exclusively on the draft. I got a really good guest from USA Today at the top of next hour on the draft, and we'll jump into that. But let me tell you what happened today. And today is, I rarely say that I'm blown away. And if you get a chance to watch on YouTube, this is why we built the YouTube channel, was for today, but I didn't know it. JT the Brick YT. If you want to log on to YouTube, it's free. So today is the 30th anniversary to the day where I won the Jim Rome Smackoff. That was the caller-driven contest that I won on April 14th, 1995 in La Jolla, California. That gave me the start of not only my radio career, but gave me the start of my Raider career. But the most important thing is it gave me my start with what is my life today. My wife, my kids, Vegas, many of the friends that I have today, all happened because of that moment 30 years ago today. So I knew the date. I knew it was coming. I didn't know who else thought it was coming. It's important to me and a couple of people in my life, but it's a call. And, you know, for those who know me, I care about legacy and I care about things and important things in my life. So I was good with all that today. So a buddy of mine, Sam Batesh, who has a podcast and is one of the former producers who I worked with, who's one of my better friends in life, he reached out to me and he said, we should do a podcast. We should do a podcast on this moment, 30 years. He goes, how's Monday sound? We'll do it at 9 a.m. So this weekend I left on Thursday, and thanks to Vinny Bonsignor who filled in for me Friday, I went out to Scottsdale, Arizona, Tempe to visit my son, who's going to graduate from college less than a month from now. My wife and I wanted to do some recon, and we went out there and played some golf, played golf with his roommate, played golf with the guy who hired me, Bruce Allen, one of my mentors, former GM and senior assistant of the Raiders. And we went out there, stayed in a hotel, and we had like a 3-day vacation. And Sam texted me, and I knew when he texted me, he said, I need to talk to you. He goes, let's do this on Monday. Are you sure you can do it at 9:00? And I said, yeah, let's do it. I can't wait. And we're going to do a podcast basically on the phone call and how I built the phone call and won the Smackoff and kind of where my career's gone from there. And I'm like, great, let's do that. And I was looking forward to it. So on Sunday, my wife and I drove. We left about 8 a.m. from Scottsdale, drove all the way back, about 4 hours and 20 minutes. And I got in, and Sam texted me again. He sent me the link to the YouTube channel and my YouTube channel. And I went to bed last night, and I woke up this morning, and I put together a Facebook post, and I put it out on Twitter. It's an important day for me. I care about important days in my life. And I'm proud of the fact that I won the first Smackoff and what Jim Rome did for me and blah, 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 meeting Pete Rose and getting hired by the Raiders and all that. So Sam and my son's on a text, my youngest son, my oldest son, and he says, Dad, get ready. And I'm like, okay, this is weird. So I get on the podcast at 9:00 and we start and Sam opens it up. And Sam, again, was a former producer of Colin Cowherd's show and just like a brother to me. And we're doing this and we're opening up the show. And the first 10 minutes, he's like, here's what we're going to do today. We're going to talk about you and this. And then all of a sudden, Jim Rome pops on. I'm like, oh, boy. And Jim Rome, which you're going to hear here, I wanted Bobby to cut it up to play it. Jim Rome came on for about 10 minutes. He's doing a show today, big show in L.A. And Jim Rome gave me one of the greatest tributes of my life. It was pretty emotional. Jim's a private guy. This is 30 years ago to the day. And the fact that they were able to do this and set this up, all of a sudden I'm on the screen with Jim Rome, and then I knew something was going on. I was like, okay, this is your life type thing. So we go into the Jim Rome 10 minutes, and you'll hear that coming up. And then we wrap that up, and Sam goes, okay, coming up next. I'm like, next? I thought we were talking about my call, winning the Smackoff. You got Jim Rome on. Who's going to, what are we going to do? He says, let's bring in John Gruden. And Coach Gruden pops into the window. And wait till you hear that. I mean, if you're a Raider fan, John Gruden came in, and he did 10, 15 minutes with me. And it was really emotional to hear Coach Gruden and what he said and all that. So now I know they got me. They got me in this thing. I'm in. The portal's open. And then Coach Gruden wraps it up, and who's in queue? Who's coming in next? Eric Allen, the future Hall of Famer, who's in the Hall of Fame, but he doesn't have his gold jacket yet. And EA came on, and we did 10 minutes. And then what really got me is my dad. My dad, my 87-year-old dad is in queue, and I see my dad waiting to come in, and my dad comes in. And my dad said some pretty cool stuff. And then my son, who built the YouTube channel, he came on and he jumped in, and Sam interviewed my son, and my son said some cool stuff, which was pretty cool. And then it just got really deep then he brought in two of my best friends, my best friend, best man in my wedding, Jimmy B. He's in Jupiter, Florida. He pops on. My other buddy, Brad, pops on. And then Stephen A. Smith is texting. He couldn't get in there. He was wrapping up First Take, but he said something really nice. And it was really cool. It was really important. And I didn't expect it. And it was very humbling. And I want to thank everybody, Sam Batesh, my son, John, the guys who thought enough to put this together and ambush me and kind of shock me today. And it took a lot out of me. I got two radio shows today, this and my night show tonight. I'm going to do 5 hours of radio. And this was about 2.5 hours from beginning to end. And it took everything out of me. I mean, tears, emotion. I mean, I get a chance to speak to my dad. and my son at the same time. So we had the three generations, my dad, myself, and my son. So that was pretty heavy, but the other highlights was obviously Jim Rome and John Gruden, who took time out of their day to come on there and really say some cool stuff. So I just wanted to thank the people behind the scenes who did that today. I'm not a big surprise guy. And I don't like surprise parties. I don't like, hey, we got someone's flying into Vegas. They're going to surprise you. I'm not big on that. But today was one of the great surprises of my life. I knew it was an important day from a perspective for me personally, where a chapter of my life began, right? I was a stockbroker. I was calling in to radio shows. I called into the Jim Rome show. I won the Smackoff. Okay, who cares? I won a caller contest. It was like American Idol before American Idol for sports. It was. That's how big Jim ended up being. But that wasn't the point of the phone call. The point was it opened up a portal to my life, a portal that never would have ever opened. So if I didn't win that contest and I came in second, there's no Raiders, there's no radio. Most likely, maybe I would have chased something in media. I don't know. But the fact that that happened and I walked through that door and I found Pete Rose and Fred Biletnikoff and Jim Brown and you, the listeners, I said throughout, the audience, the listeners who have followed my career and the callers especially who have called me my whole career, I'm nothing without them. They're everything. I mean, everything to me. And I was able to thank everybody there. So it's up on my YouTube channel at JT the Brick YT. I think you'll like it because it was a really cool story about a moment in life that a lot of other people understood and were very gracious to give me some time with that. I really enjoyed it, and I felt really lucky to have the people that I have in my life. And wow, I was mind blown. My wife was kind of in on it. She was in the other room. And she was kind of bouncing around the house knowing that these people were coming on when they were coming on. And holy crap. I mean, John Gruden's up there in Barstool, and wait to hear what he said. But the Jim Rome stuff was really important. So how am I going to tie it into today? The priority today is the NFL draft. But I just want to thank a lot of people in my life, because if that moment didn't happen 30 years ago today, April 14th, 1995, really, I don't know where I'd be today. As I said on my Twitter and Facebook post today, if I don't win that contest and I don't make that phone call, I have no idea where I'd be. No idea. Don't know what I would be. I'd maybe still be a stockbroker. How would that be the last 5 days? Maybe in real estate. Maybe I move back to New York because it didn't work out west. And I'm living in New York. I don't have the life I have. My kids aren't the kids I have today. The friends that I made out west, especially in the Raider Nation and all the people I met, none of that happens unless I have that moment 30 years ago today on April 14th. And pretty humbling because Jim Rome's a private guy. And when I won the Smackoff initially, I was very immature, shocking. And I was kind of pompous, and I was getting in the business, and I thought I was going to, do this and that. And it's come full circle with Jim Rome, where I always respected him, but I was never really involved in his life. And today he made me really feel like I was part of his family, which is important because as you're going to hear this coming up, it's about relationships. And Bobby, who's here with me today, Bobby's been with me as long as anybody. Also, Tom Looney showed up on the podcast today, 14 years with him. So it was this is your life today for me. And I didn't expect it. And I was just really honored and privileged that I had people in my life thinking about me today this way. I guess, the moral of the story, no matter what you do, sports radio really does. It's not life-changing to people. Being a doctor, being an emergency worker, being in the military, changing lives other ways to me are much more important than the path that I chose. But what I do know is that the advice I give people, and I give to my sons and everyone else, you never know when that moment's going to happen. It might not be life-changing, but it could be big. A job could end. You don't know what the other job's going to be. I was there. It could be a moment where you got to really have the balls to walk through the open door, and maybe you don't. Well, maybe you should have the balls to do it, because it worked for me. And it was just because, I don't want to say I didn't have any other choice, but this was a glaring alarm that went off in my life and said, go do it. Go give it a shot. And most importantly, my dad. If my dad didn't have my back, and how cool is it that my dad's on a Zoom today with me on a podcast, sitting there telling me about what that meant to him. And if my dad didn't say, go for it, I got your back, I probably wouldn't have went for it. I probably would have said, no, I'm going to go back to doing something else. So today's an important day for me because of everything that happened after that call to Jim Rome. Everything that happened after has defined my life. Number one is my wife and kids. No chance I meet them. No chance they exist if I don't win the Smackoff. Zero. There's no chance, as in 0.000. That means I'm pretty lucky. And then all the other careers and jobs I had all came through that phone call. So I don't know if it's already happened to you or if it's about to happen to you, or maybe you need a moment of inspiration or a little bit of fate. My whole life's been based on fate. I think that everything happens for a reason, the good and the bad. And every day is not easy. But, for 30 years of starting in the business, because my career, I started on Memorial Day, 96. That was my first national show. So that's when it started for me. But it started for me today, 30 years ago, because I won a caller contest on a pretty popular show. And I'm very, 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 very grateful for that, because I wasn't always grateful for it at the time. I didn't see the big picture. But a day like today, it took others, including my buddy Sam and my son, remarkably, to show me in that mirror what my life has become and how lucky I've been. A lot of fate is being lucky. It's not about talent. I think a lot of it has to do with hard work and passion and perseverance, but a lot of it's luck. And at times in life, you feel like you don't have good luck. 30 years ago today was a moment that had to do with being in the right place at the right time. Preparation, if you want to say that for a sports radio call. I mean, come on. But I did prep and was ready for it. And then the results after that. So I just want to say thank you to the people who helped me 30 years ago today. You'll hear from a few of them today. Bobby tells me we're off for Aviators tomorrow again. We're off for minor league baseball tomorrow. Thank God I got other radio shows, I guess. But so today it'll be about, we have a guest on who's going to talk about the running backs in the draft and all that. But today I just wanted to share how grateful I am and how lucky I am for my life. All from picking up the phone and passionately loving sports radio shows, liking a show in particular, and it finding something in me that I didn't think I had in me. And it's been 30 years, but it feels like a minute. All the shows, all the hours, all the double shifts, and all of that had a lot to do with where I am today. So that's where I am today, and it's because of the people in my life. I don't know if we'll play my dad's portion of it, but my dad said something very poignant. He said, he told me as a kid, don't hang out with losers. It was a big thing, big part of my life. My dad used to make me write think. And he'd say, hang out with good people and good things will happen. And I think I'm a product of being around really good people and people who took care of me and people who were looking out for me. And 30 years ago today, right around now, I won the first ever Jim Rome Smackoff, and it changed my entire life. I'm very grateful for that. Chris in West Oakland, starting us off today. Appropriate phone call. How are you, Chris?
I'm doing good, man. Congratulations. I remember listening to that Smackoff phone call from Jim Rome, and the very first, which kicked off, which for years the Smackoff was the biggest day in sports radio, and you took over and the inaugural champion, And, you made a comment earlier, JT, about, lucky. Yeah, luck presents the opportunity, but what you've done with it is just phenomenal. You took it and run with it. I remember listening to you and Pete Rose. I miss the old sports fan days when you were on from midnight to 5 a.m. I'd be driving to work at 3 o'clock in the morning listening to you on the air. So, and not to mention, give yourself a pat on the back because you've survived 30 years in this industry. You can count on probably two hands the number of guys that have been in this industry, at least in a prominent spot. Now you did what, 20 years nationally almost on Fox. What you've done has been phenomenal, and it all started off as a phone call. But you said something about appreciating your phone callers and nothing without them. Well, let me tell you something. I speak for all of us. We appreciate you, brother, because you're really the last of a dying breed that appreciates what we have to say, gives us a platform. Most of these shows now, I'm going to use Colin Cowherd as an example, not saying good or bad. It's basically a 3-hour monologue. Never hear a phone call. They'll interview a guest. The caller is non-existent to some of these guys that like to get on there and blow hard and pontificate for 2 or 3 hours and don't give a damn what guys like me or Big D or the old Raider Rob have to say. I miss those days of the overnight show, man. And I'll tell you one other thing, too. I don't think I've read it in one of your books. People don't realize when you started out, you talk about hard work. You literally rented airspace to get to your start. Nobody handed you anything. Nobody handed you the golden microphone. You rented time on the air. Then 6 months later, they told you didn't have to pay, and you said in one of your books that, hey, I figured it was a raise since I didn't have to pay anymore. But I'll say this, JT, in closing, and congratulations. We've had a lot of great times over the years, and I know this from my end. If you didn't make that Smackoff phone call, we haven't had the friendship me and you have had for going on 30 years. I appreciate that, brother. It was great hearing. I can't wait to listen to this podcast. I miss the old Ticket 1050 days, and you've earned it, brother. Pat yourself on the back, smoke a cigar, have a Modelo, have a shot. This is a great day because the Smackoff started it all. And from all the callers out there, loudmouths like me, thank you for still giving me a platform to get on the air because very few people do anymore. Have a great week, brother. I'll talk to you later.
Thank you, Chris. I always appreciate you and your compliments. And Chris became a good friend because, he was a friend in the parking lot of Raider games at tailgates. And then, the friendship got better. And it has nothing to do with him calling. It's just friendship. And a lot of that happens in my life with a lot of good Raider fans along the way. So really appreciate that. We'll play some of this Jim Rome conversation. I want you to hear from Coach Gruden, what Coach Gruden said today. Gruden's a big deal now with Barstool. He's always been a big deal. So it's kind of nice to see him. As it comes to what we're going to do here, I was talking to Bobby as we put our plan together here for the next week. Again, we're off tomorrow for Aviators. We're on the rest of the week. And then next week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and then I'll be anchoring or doing something as always with the Raiders draft. We have the Raiders draft party. And we're going to do 2 days of the draft. The Thursday is the first round. And then the Friday with Eric Allen, we'll do 2 rounds of that where the Raiders will really be diving into the draft. So if you'd like to get in today, 702-365-9200, 702-365-9200. The monologue is brought to you by Golden Entertainment. They own the Strat and 70 plus taverns, including PTs. They fuel the monologue 5 to 7, midnight to 2. The best happy hour in town. Show's always about you and what you have to say, but I'm very humble and gracious today on the 30-year anniversary of winning the Jim Rome Smackoff. Coming up next, you'll hear my conversation with Jim Rome today, which showed me a side of Jim Rome that I knew existed, but to feel it that way, the way I felt it today, was pretty cool. And I'm excited about that, for you to hear that. All right, and then the Raiders, running back, wide receiver, linebacker, corner. Oh, Raider Nation unite. The draft is right around the corner. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it was fun, man. Good day today.
Really think of those guys.
Hit the like button if you can.
But when it comes to Ashton Jeanty, we don't know what their philosophy necessarily is on that position at that point in the draft. And that does come into play for certain teams. I don't know that that's the case for John Spytek and the Raiders right now.
The Morning Tailgate, weekdays at 7 a.m. on Raider Nation Radio, 920 a.m.
Boyd Gaming is the official and exclusive local casino partner.
Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Appreciate the nice words, and everything's good today. Appreciate the monologue. Thank you, Fabian and Big D and Kenny and everybody who's there. Hopefully, my son cuts up some of this podcast so you can see what happened today. It was really cool, but that'll all be there for everybody to see. Hope everybody had a good weekend. God, I was out in Scottsdale, man. I had no idea. I've been out there a number of times, but I forgot how big it is, man. I forgot how big Phoenix Scottsdale is. Holy crap. I mean, it's 40 minutes to go around their beltway. I mean, it feels like it's 5 Vegases or 10 Vegases. So, yeah, we had a pretty cool weekend out there.
This is Raider Nation.
Yeah, I'm watching
Radio,
Rome.
920 a.m. The home of Raider Nation.
Grammy Award-winning Train.
Yep.
Live in concert. Saturday, May 3rd, 8 p.m. in Resort Pool.
Thank you, born a Raiders fan. You know, Ron and Don. Yeah.
If you need to sell your house,
Talk to Aaron Taylor.
wanna sell it fast and get the most cash, talk to Aaron Taylor.
The real estate guy. I've guided my son Jacob through life.
Felice.
Teaching him how to ride a bike to his first day of school. Now we guide our clients through their real estate journey. We ask the right questions to fit your needs. Whether you're buying or selling residential, commercial, land, or in need.
So what do you got, Bobby? You got Gruden and Rome.
Right now, Rome is ready to go.
How long was Rome?
13 quarters.
Okay.
Negotiate the best deals to find you the perfect home. So call the real estate guy today.
Yep.
We'll help you ride smoothly through your real estate.
Man, I want to get to Rory McIlroy too. That was sick.
That's 702-310. Or visit us at therealestateguyLV.com to see our amazing reviews. EXP Realty license number 38886. Call for details.
Talk to Aaron Taylor.
The real estate guy. We're chatting with our guest. Always safety first. 811 megaphone man. You never stray from your mission of letting homeowners, landscapers, and excavators know you should always call 811 before you dig. Call 811. Call for both small and big jobs. And 2 working days in advance. 811. Any parting words? And I'm guessing they will
It's going to be Rory McIlroy course game coming back.
Brought to you by Southwest Gas.
Okay, thanks.
Zip Zap Auto has expanded into one of the largest independent auto repair shops in the valley. With 23 bays, over 12,000.
All right, let's get the show going here.
One-stop shop.
Yeah, I think they're going to take. I think the Raiders are going to take Genty because they need a running back, and they need a running back badly, and they need to control the football. They need to control the game, and if Genty turns out to be great, that could change everything.
Modelo is an official cerveza of the Las Vegas Raiders and the JT the Brick Show. Modelo Especial.
You know, could they take Shador? Yeah. Could they take a corner? Could they take an offensive lineman? I had someone today basically say, why don't you build up the offensive line? All right, well, build up the offensive line for who? How about getting Ashton Genty and then build the offensive line? You know, you can get Ashton Genty at 6, but there are people that think Genty could be gone at 5. I don't know.
Brought to you by the Decasta Verde Law Group. If you get injured in an accident, call 702-222-9999.
I think I had 2 yards less in the playoff than I did in regulation. It was a little bit of a flatter lie as well. So I knew I had a perfect, a 3-quarter gap wedge was going to land into the slope and come back. So it was a good number. I just needed to make a good committed swing. And, I made one at the right time.
Rory McIlroy and Turn It Up. AC/DC, which is playing this month at Allegiant Stadium right when we come off the draft. I will be in there in full force for AC/DC. Two of my nephews saw him play in Minneapolis to kick off the tour. Said it was a good show. Better be good. I saw him at Coachella. That was their last big show as they came back. So that'll be at Allegiant Stadium. For Rory McIlroy, quickly, that was one of the craziest golf tournaments I've ever seen. It was the Masters, which made it even more important of him winning. So I've had a pretty good week on that. I predicted Florida would win the national championship. I got that right before the tournament began. And if you've been following me on X, I predicted Rory McIlroy would win. And before you say, well, you picked, no, I never picked Rory McIlroy ever to win in my life until Tuesday of last week, where I picked him to win. And so I got Florida right, and I got Rory McIlroy right. I promise you there's no one else that you listen to in God's green earth who did that. Not one person. Did I get lucky? Of course I got lucky. I liked Florida. I picked them to win. I thought they were nasty when I watched the SEC tournament. I go, these guys look like they got 4 Draymond Greens. Take them. And then I picked Rory because I thought his time was right to win, coming off winning the Players' Championship. Coming off TPC Sawgrass, I said, you got to make a lot of shots there, and I think he'll do it at Augusta, and I picked him to win. Now, there's a difference between picking someone to win and rooting for someone to win. Like, if you pick Kansas City to win the Super Bowl because they're better than everybody by a lot the last 4 or 5 years, that doesn't mean you're rooting for them. You're rooting for them to lose, but you think they're going to win. I don't root for Rory McIlroy because he's a foreigner. He plays outside America. I root for Americans, but I predicted him to win this because I thought he was going to win. And I didn't think he'd have to go to overtime, which is a playoff. I played 3 rounds of golf this weekend. I shot 83, 85 in that range with my son. I played pretty well. If I'm shooting in the mid 80s, that's my buddy J.O.D. If I'm shooting in the mid 80s or low 80s, I feel good. Okay? I feel good. I'd like to live in the 70s maybe when I have more time. Can't do it. The shot that Rory McIlroy hit into the bunker on 18 was a shot that I hit for 3 days and didn't put in the bunker. Even myself, a weekend warrior hack, a 14 or 15 handicap, could have put that ball on the green, and Rory put it in the bunker. Put it in the bunker. Almost lost the Masters. Came out of the bunker, missed the shot, had to go to a playoff with Justin Rose, and then he made the next shot and made the putt. But he almost choked that thing away. I mean, he choked multiple times at the Masters. He had 4 double bogeys throughout the course of Thursday to Sunday and won. That's never happened before. He's a great warrior, great guy. Could you imagine if Rory McIlroy his entire life did not get invited to the Masters Championship dinner? And all those other guys he's so much better than, Danny Willett, Charles Schwartzel, they're all in there with their green jackets and Rory's in a hotel. I mean, this is important for him to win. Congratulations to Rory McIlroy. As I said, today is the 30th anniversary of winning the Jim Rome Smackoff. Earlier today on my YouTube channel, Jim Rome joined me, shocked me out of nowhere on this milestone.
Yo, what's cracking, dudes?
Wow.
Can you see me? Happy anniversary, Brent. What's going on, dude? How you feeling?
Jim, what an unbelievable surprise. What a big day. Looking back 30 years, and what a nice surprise to see you. So I can thank you again out of the gate for maybe the pivotal moment in my life where everything happened after that phone call. Wow.
All right, let me respond to that in a second. Sam, good morning, bro. Sam is also one of the icons of the business. I want to mention him. Yeah, JT, listen, I mean, where do we even start, right? What an amazing day that was. But I want to tell you, and I don't want to be patronizing in any way, but I want to tell you how much I respect you and how much I appreciate you, how much I'm proud of you. Dude, you did what we did back in the day. We were old school types that came up the hard way. Look, we weren't walking to work 10 miles in the snow, but the world was very different. Like right now, you have one of these, you have a show. Not when you and I came up and you had a really successful career and you had a passion for sports and you were a New York guy, but you were killing it as a stockbroker. And when you won that Smackoff, what you did was what I did early on. You burned the boats, man. You went all in. You took a chance. You left money on the table and you said, you know what? I love this. I want to do this. I'm going to leave that behind, and I'm going to bet on myself. And you pushed everything right to the center of the table, and you did it, dude. And I could not be more proud of you or the fact that there's kind of a Rome tree, but you are right there as one of the strongest branches. So happy 30th anniversary to you, dude. You should be very, very proud of your career, because I am.
Well, Jim, that means a lot. And again, a lot happened that day. And, I gravitated to you and your show because it just was absolutely different. We all knew that. I had friends along the way, Raider Mike, other guys. We all started to get together. After I won the Smackoff, you put together that tour stop of 3 different bars that we went to. You sent a limo down. I put 8 of my buddies in it, and they came up with me. And that was the time where I said to myself, because I never dreamed of doing this. I had a nice career, but a couple people said, you should try to do this, try to do that. And then I kind of did burn the boats, and I moved out to Vegas, and I was doing real overnights, midnight to 5 Pacific time. But what was the break at that moment was because of you and winning that contest, I dropped in on Sports Fan Radio Network, and the first shows I did, I was on KMBR, The Ticket in Dallas, WEI in Boston, all these unbelievable stations working my style coming off of you on some of the biggest radio shows in America. And then another thing I learned from you, I didn't do this to get on the radio and be heard. I built a business like I have today. I said, who cares if you're on the radio? That's cool. But if you don't survive and knock on doors and find advertisers and talk to sales execs in your building, the portal that opened up with Craig Kitchen and Andrew Ashwood, and they taught me about the business side of it. And Sam, I'll say this about Jim, not only a Hall of Famer on the Mount Rushmore, but Jim was the guy that told us all, if you're going to do this, you got to make money. You got to make a career, provide for your family. And I was able to do that because I understood the business model that he set up. You got to go find the sales. You got to find the affiliates. You got to find the advertising and make a career.
Hey, look, it's a business. The show is the show. You want to keep the main thing, but it is a business. Understand, I grew up in a family that had a small business. So every single night at the dinner table, I always heard business is business, business is business. My father and mother owned this business. It was a manufacturing firm in the San Fernando Valley, and I had no roots in the entertainment business. I knew nobody in radio. However, I understood the notion of business. So as good as the show was, the show had to be the thing, but it didn't matter how good the show was if they didn't sell the show, if they didn't clear the show, if you couldn't put food on the table. The other major thing, JT, that I think was really important, and I pride myself on this, I didn't enter on the network level. I started in a small market. I had to fight my way out of Santa Barbara. I can't tell you how many years, how many letters, how many resumes I sent to 690 AM just trying to get that door, just trying to get that opportunity. So I was proud of myself on that. I fought my way out of a small market and built the thing brick by brick by brick. No pun intended. And even though 690 was a major, major break for me, we even built that network. We self-syndicated. John Lynch was the one who said, you know what? If the show works this well in Southern California, I think it'll work in other places. And a lot of these other markets were like, no, man, it'll never work. Rome is a SoCal guy. That shtick will never work outside of Southern California. So we started with 4 stations, and then 6, then 8, then 12, until we got to over 200. But my greatest source of pride is I built that thing up, and it was just through grit and hard work. And what we're talking about right here, business. Understand the business.
I got to say one thing here. I just want to jump into this as well with you guys real quick. But Jim, we have to ask.
Good morning, dude. What's up, Sam? Good morning,
man. It is so good to have you, Jim. It is so great to have you both.
Much respect.
And I can't even believe how huge this is to have this happen, the 30 years. But I want to ask the name, JT the Brick. He's known now as JT the Brick, and people probably don't really understand that. Talk about what you did. Your show was an entire vocabulary in and of itself, Jim. And part of that was creating this persona for JT. He's a stockbroker. He's not a character. And you come up with, how did it come to be the Brick?
Okay, but he did become a character on the show.
Yes.
I mean that in a good way. See, the funny thing about the show was, and the way the Smackoff came to be, my feeling always was, when I came up, I had a different approach and a different show, and people either loved it or they hated it, but they were listening to it, and they were gravitating to it, and then all of a sudden, they had the clones. And this became kind of a derisive thing initially because what it was just people trying to sound like me and spit out what I was saying because it was just so different. But I realized soon enough, and I was always a grinder, I was always a worker, I was never afraid of hard work. But what I did realize about this industry early on was that if I entrusted my career and my destiny, and to JT's point, the ability to put food on the table to the callers, I was not going to have a long run because, frankly, no offense to the callers, and we all know this in the business, the percentage of those who listen versus those who call, is very small. But what I recognized were there were 10 or 15 or 20 incredible callers and dozens or hundreds of really crappy callers. So if I could just pick the ones that I wanted to call the program, the show would be so much better. But you can't do that. Not every night, but I could do that one day a year. The Smackoff. And if I let them all come in and they all compete for crown of Smackoff or King of Smack for the year, that might be really good for the show. And sure enough, the best of the best came in, and JT was the best of the best on that day. But like I kind of distinguished myself on the show, JT was able to distinguish himself as a caller. He was very aggressive. He was high energy. He was very New York. He made the show better. He made the show sound different. So it was not at all any surprise to me that he won that first Smackoff and parlayed that into something much bigger.
I mean, 30 years, Jim, it's a credit really to you, JT. I want you to say something. And Jim, I know you got to run soon, but I want to say a couple things. I mean, Jim not only revolutionized what happened on radio, I want to give you a chance, Jim, to explain. You're also crushing it now on an entirely different platform on X. I mean, you really, in a way, you stepped into something completely different, in many ways unknown, and are doing exactly what you've been doing for over 30 years now in a platform, like you said, on the phone for people to access you. I just want to hear from you. What has that been like? And let everybody know, remind everybody again, where they are still receiving content from Jim Rome because of what you've been able to do now in an entirely different way on an entirely different stage.
I appreciate that, Sam. For so long in my life, my business life was pretty straightforward. I would do a radio program during the day, and then after the radio program, I would go to a TV show. And for years, it was ESPN, and then for years, it was Fox, then it was years for ESPN, and then it was years for CBS Sports Network. The model was just brick and mortar, right? You wanted to make sure that one of the major media corporations picked you, but then I always had in the back of my mind that I understood that I was the young and upcoming guy, and everybody I interviewed was older than me. And then all of a sudden, I just put my head down, and I look up, and all these years go by, and now all these guys that I interviewed that were older than me are not only retired, but I'm interviewing their kids. Like, dang, I've been around here a long time. And then I look around me, and I've got to be really cognizant. See, one of my strengths was I always understood that I didn't have this superpower. But I was pretty self-aware, and I'm looking around the landscape, and it's changing, and new people are coming in. So where do I fit in? I once said famously, at least in my mind, that the last thing this world's ever going to need, we're YouTube right now, right? I can curse.
Oh, yeah. YouTube.
The last thing we ever need is a 50-year-old shit talker. Like, nobody's going to want that, right? But here I am now at 60, and maybe I talk a little less junk than I used to, but I'm still hearing, how do I stay relevant? And how do I make sure that they still come to see me? How do I reinvent? So what I did was I just kind of busted the whole model up all over again. And I'm not sure it'll ever be like it used to be when I came on so strong, but I knew that I had to do it differently. So I was on linear cable my whole life. I'd never streamed before. So now the entire operation is a streaming operation. We're on X live every day for 3 hours. And then I established the Rome Fast channel, which is on 8 other platforms. And that has the exclusive 4th hour. Dudes, I'm going the wrong way. I went from 5 hours to 4 hours to 3 hours. I'm like, I can get to 2 hours. I can get to 1 hour. I can get to the Rome Minute and make the same amount of money. I'm back up to 4 hours. I'm going. What's next? The Scrub Saturday show? I'm going the wrong way. But it's all about staying relevant. So X, Rome Fast channel, did a deal. The audio deal changed. Now I'm exclusively with Westwood One, who I already had a deal with for about 10 years. They would sell and clear the program. And I'm basically just reinventing and trying to stay relevant because I know one day, guys, they will come to me and say, oh, man, we've had enough. Hit the bricks, hit the street. And it'll be fine, man. It'll be fine because it's been a great run, but it's my job to hold that day off as long as possible because I still love it. I still love the grind, and I still love the work.
Wow. Well, to wrap this up with Jim, I'll tell you, the one thing I wanted to and kind of nice to see both of you guys today. But Jim, I want you to understand that this to me isn't about radio and what you did for me, because I can never thank you for that. It's about what happened after that. And going on year 29 with the Raiders on Sirius XM Mad Dog now, doing my show in Vegas. What it's about is my family. Our kids are roughly the same age, 23, 21. I meet my wife walking into a Rolling Stone show in Vegas because I win the Smackoff and I start in Vegas with the Pete Rose show, and my life changes and everything happens from there. My dad told me when I was leaving Merrill Lynch, he says, "How much are they going to pay you? You're making six figures." And I said, 25,000. He said, "Can you get 30?" And I said, well, I met him halfway. And I started, as we said, brick by brick, building it. And one of the other things I learned is Jim just wrapped up doing the 4 or 5 hours a day. Every chance you get to be on a platform, radio, YouTube, X, whatever it is, and have this ability to talk with listeners, callers, and build lifetime relationships is a blessing. And Jim, you opened that portal for me. I can never thank you enough for it. And man, what a shock and nice surprise today. 30 years ago today, I won the Smackoff and it changed my life. And you had everything to do with it. Thank you so much.
My man, listen, happy anniversary to you, JT. I want to be so clear about this. You were good for our program, and maybe you use that as an impetus or a springboard. But dude, you did all this. You really don't have anything to thank me for. You heard the radio program. You liked the radio program. You want to participate in that radio program. We both benefited from that. You know, you got a little dopamine. I got better content. But let's be very clear about this, dude. You did all the work. You had your own vision. You put in the time. This great life and career that you created for yourself and those around you, you did on your own. So I am really, really proud of you. And I'm proud that we have such a good relationship and such a good connection because, man, there's enough to go around. There's enough to go around. You do not have to be a bad person to succeed in this business or this world, man. Just go to work, man. Get up early, go to work long days, and do things the right way and treat people the right way. So I just want to get that little editorial blast in there, but couldn't be happier for you, man. And I appreciate the invite so much. And Sam, you too, dude. You're also one of the legends of the business. You guys are lucky to have each other, and I appreciate the time so much. And JT, happy anniversary, dude. You earned all of it.
Thanks, Jim. All the best to you, Janet, and the family, man. Thank you so much. All right. So that was earlier today. Jim Rome surprised me, jumped on this YouTube podcast that we did. And you could tell by the tone of his voice and the way he was so gracious for that. And I really appreciate that. I mean, that's a big part of my life. A lot of people tie me to him, and they should, because if I don't win his contest and I don't start by calling his show, and it all happened because of him. And I have to make that point clear to everybody. Nothing else on radio, which is not the end of the world. This is radio. But for me, it's my life. And I wonder where my life would have been if it wasn't for Jim Rome. And at times I didn't appreciate that the way I should have. At other times I've really appreciated it. And days like today, I've never appreciated it more. And I want to thank Jim Rome for that. John Gruden came on after that. I had no idea Coach Gruden was coming. You'll hear that next hour. We'll get to that. And then, maybe we'll do it Friday, but my dad. I mean, the biggest guest today was my dad. I mean, Jim's the reason I won the Smackoff and Coach Gruden and all this. But my dad and my son had a lot to do with today, which was really nice. So that's kind of what I'm choosing to do today. We got some radio mixed in regards to the draft. A lot of Raider fans. Raider Nation, I think you're in a good place with the draft, and let me tell you why. Let me just explain this to you very quickly. And I'm just talking modern draft Vegas. I'm not talking Oakland, Jamarcus Russell, all that, the past. We've had a really rough time in Vegas with the draft, with some really good executives who made their names in the draft. Mike Mayock drafted Max Crosby. Okay, Hunter Renfrow was a Pro Bowler drafted. Brock Bowers was drafted by Tom Telesco. There's been some really good picks, but overall, the Raiders have gotten destroyed at times with bad picks. I've said this and I'm preaching this. It cannot happen again. So is that pressure? Yeah, there's pressure. Why do you think we have a new GM and a new owner and Tom Brady and a new head coach? Because they're now chosen to take the Raiders to the next level. Excuses die, the record stands. The record wasn't good last year. The GM, the coach, and all the coaches, a lot of them are gone because of the record. Now we have a chance to improve it dramatically. The 6th pick in the draft, it's not a lock. The Raiders are going to stay at 6. I don't think they're going to move up. They might move back, but none of us know. So let's hope for the best. There's some good players available, and we'll see. I'm excited. This is the most excited I've been for a draft since the first one in Vegas, because I think this is so monumentally important. We're brought to you by Modelo, the #1 beer in America. We all live through the fighting spirit. Modelo, proud partner of our show.
We only got about 3 minutes on the other side.
Yeah.
Did Gruden cuss or anything?
No. Yeah, he dropped an F-bomb in there, but that's okay. We got it. We dropped it, so we're good. You know, I like Shador. Everybody was like, should the Raiders take Shador? Well, yes, if the Raiders didn't take Geno and they had Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew, yeah, you take Shador. They got Geno Smith. They got him locked up. What is he getting? $75 million guaranteed, $66 million guaranteed. Geno's the quarterback, and embrace it, man. He's a good player. 4,300 yards and a 70% completion ratio. The Raiders, I talked to someone about it today on text. The Raiders need to control the pace of the game. They need to have the ball for 33 to 35 minutes. 60-minute football game, defense, offense, special teams. How long do you have the ball? Typically 30 minutes, maybe 29, 31, whatever. The Raiders with Brock Bowers and maybe Ashton Genty or one of the running backs have to control the pace of the offense and stay on the field. That's it. If you want to do that by building up the offensive line, do it. If you want to do it by rolling the dice on Genty, you do it. But getting a wide receiver in the 6th pick who might catch 6 balls a game for 61 yards and no touchdown, that's not going to control the clock. So I like Ted McMillan. If Genty's gone at 5 and Jacksonville takes him and you take the wide receiver, I'm good. I don't know what to tell you. I just want the best player available. And I think Genty is a guy that can just for 3, 4, 5 years you can hand the ball off to him 25 times a game and he could have massive games. We saw what it was like when Josh Jacobs was playing well. And we saw that. Genty has a much bigger ceiling than Josh Jacobs out of Alabama. Josh Jacobs was a hell of a player coming out of Alabama. He was not Ashton Genty. He was not. Now, talent-wise, you could say, yeah, they're big, they're shorter, big, guys who can run and move the pile. Ashton Genty was a Heisman Trophy finalist. He's a special player. For those who say Omari and Hampton, yes. Yeah, if you don't get Genty and take Hampton in the 2nd round, but Hampton's going to be gone in the 1st round. So if you don't get Genty, I wouldn't take Hampton before Genty. I wouldn't. But remember, Chip Kelly had 2 of these running backs, and he might like them better.
Max Crosby talking about Geno Smith.
Okay. Top of the hour, we have Chris Bumbaka.
1:15 will be Harry Ruiz for a couple of minutes.
Yeah.
And I got the Gruden.
Cristo Race at Viator College.